I'm here today as a practitioner to talk about exciting developments which are making natural healing with herbs an even more direct and powerful tool than ever before. It involves a tremendous leap of understanding concerning the teeming life within and around ourselves and its fundamental interrelatedness and interdependence and resulting vibrant movement of life. It's about probiotics as opposed to antibiotics. Bio equals life. It's about community, things coming together, not in separateness, not in opposition. It's about reaching new perspectives about living life in health and harmony, symbiosis.
So, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about this concept of interrelatedness.
Such an exciting subject, new, an extension of our understanding and our integratedness in all of life. So, everything that is living is made up of, it seems, millions and trillions of parts. The human body, scientists now tell us, comprises some 10 trillion cells. We've now discovered that there are microbacteria. I think we've already always known about them to some extent, but our understanding and knowledge of their performance and their importance has been extended in very recent years. And apparently, according to the scientists, they number somewhere in the region of 100 trillion microbes or microbacteria in our bodies. That's 10 times more than the cells in our bodies. And they contain 90% of the genetic material in our bodies. So they have the power to heal and to destroy, according to the balance of the destructive or the constructive, as I like to call them, microbes in the body. And the interesting, so everything, let's just say this first of all, everything has a role to play.
Yeah.
This is the beautiful message and the uplifting message. Nothing is surplus to requirements in the organic world. Everything has a part to play, and as I say to people who consult me, find what is meaningful to you, because that in itself is uplifting. Live what is meaningful, not dutifully if you can avoid it, if you can help it, but inspired by what is meaningful to you. So the microbes, we're talking about interrelatedness and interdependence. So the microbes are not an independent force. They depend on us living healthily, that is, living on living foods, on vibrant living foods, fruit and vegetables predominantly. And in being fed, it's almost like a garden, in being farmed or gardened in the correct manner, then they bestow upon us all manner of nutrients that the body doesn't make for itself. This is the genetic process. And they even produce elements that can control things like cancer. So they play a vital role,
Right.
which is the wonderful part about it.
And it's their relationship with every cell in the body, which sort of like that. I'm getting a sense of, I mean, I've heard about bacteria before, but I haven't really appreciated how dynamic that bacteria is. You know, what a vital role they have to play. And a wonderful analogy with the garden there, because my understanding of gardening, I must admit, is limited. But I'm from that limited understanding, I'm aware that the quality of acidity or alkaline in the soil is important to the well-being of the plants. I'm also aware of, you know, I've talked to farmers and they've talked about rotation of crops rather than just, you know, the same crop each time.
Yeah.
So I'm really beginning to see that there's a potential for us all to become gardeners of our own bodies in a way, really. Managing the promoting the sort of proactive bacteria in the body.
Yeah.
How how do herbs fit into this picture?
Well, herbs are complete, whole, interrelated functions of all the various parts, of all the various elements that they contain. Obviously, they have different roles. So you've heard of hawthorn berries, for instance, hawthorn tree. They contribute to the well-being of the heart and circulation. You will have heard of dandelion, for instance, which aids digestion, the functions of the liver and the gallbladder. But also, what is of fundamental importance and so beautiful, I've always, in helping a person to become well, recognized that one of the processes that I need to look after in their bodies is digestion. Because it's about eating, about absorbing and being nourished by that, and it also encompasses the elimination of the waste matter. So that's one process from one end of the body to the other. That's so important. The place where these microbacteria particularly inhabit is the large intestine. And so it behoves us to live on healthy foods in order that accumulated waste matter can progressively be eliminated so that the beneficial microbes can proliferate and support our healing and our health and the protection of ourselves from infection without the need of antibiotics and vaccinations and all that kind of thing, which is really so false and so alien to the body.
It really is interesting because as you talk and as you say about microbes and their concentration in the gut, and then that makes me understand very directly why we say healthy foods.
And why we say I've got a gut feeling.
And I've got a gut feeling, yeah, because of the real dynamic and part that these microbes play. And you mentioned the dandelion and its benefits for absorption of foodstuffs. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
You
right.
talked about the hawthorn in
Yes.
terms of sort of like helping the heart and circulation.
Nettle helping the urinary system.
So there really is this parallel with gardening, isn't there? We're talking
Yes.
about the products
Yes.
of a garden. But equally, I know the difference between my experience of gardening and your experience of gardening, and therefore I'm eager to know more about how herbs promote health, how they assist in this process, because that's something which is fascinating to me.
I mentioned just a moment ago, in response to what you were saying, gut feeling. And feeling is of paramount importance. We live in such a technical world at the moment, and everything is brain work rather than feeling. The gut, in fact, scientists are now calling the second brain, because the gut seems to control so much of our well-being. What herbs do is to contribute specifically and powerfully in a way that ordinary foods don't and cannot. But so they have a part to play. Foodstuffs do as well. So again, it's about being complementary, and various of the herbs support and improve the function of the various systems in the body. So you've got digestive system, you've got the nervous system, you've got the urinary system, the reproductive system, and so on. So again, you see it's wheels within wheels, because it's a whole system, but it cannot function in separation from the rest.
No.
So the brain is not more important, the heart is not more important. Those are big organs and important parts of the body, but all the lesser parts contribute to the well-being of its function.
So it seems a really inclusive process.
Absolutely.
Totally inclusive.
Yeah.
That there's a part that each part of the body plays.
Yes.
And that, and I suppose, you know, when you were talking about gut feeling and feeling, that makes me think of sensation, and it makes me think of awareness. And I
Yes.
suppose that's what we're talking about, really,
It is.
helping
It
people
is.
to become aware
Yes.
of the role they can play,
Yes.
and that the role that the foods that they eat
Yes.
are actually playing. I'm assuming, and having spoken to you before, I know that actually you're talking more about just relieving people's symptoms.
Much, much more. Again, as you were speaking, of course, it brings images to the mind. And one of the most important observations that I've been able to make is that people are so uplifted if they pursue a course of, well, we call it treatment, but a course of herbs, progressively. So it not only uplifts and inspires, but it brings together in that much greater harmony and transforms the outlook of the person and the involvement of the person with all around them. In personal relationships, in the relationship with the environment, with animals, insects, and we begin to see things in so much more a respectful and caring way, which is what I would love to see politics, for instance, transformed into, because it's divisive and it doesn't help people to unite. It separates, and you know, we have confrontations. But what we're talking about is the reality of life, which is a harmony. And yes, of course, there are ups and downs, like the waves on the sea. So there has to be death and destruction in its due time, just like the seasons. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. And things have to die and have to be broken down in preparation for the spring and the nourishment of the ensuing plants and crops that come along at that time.
It's interesting that you bring in politics there as well, you know, and the sort of like the sense that we have our major parties, and I think most people would think of them as being separate. But actually, if we think about the recent referendum which has gone on in Scotland, there was, you know, 94% or plus people turned out to actually sort of cast their vote. The engagement and involvement of people.
Yes.
That's what's been most exciting for me.
Well,
and you're talking about something very similar here.
Yes.
With something as immediate as our own bodies.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm now beginning to think of this whole process as I've not been able to have land that I can garden. I haven't even had an allotment of my own. I remember helping someone with her allotment. But I'm now beginning to think of my body as perhaps a garden that I can consider the foods that I eat contributing to the positive or negative microbes, which then is going to play a vital part in how the organs within my body, which could be thought of as this beautiful tree that I'm looking at through the windows as we speak, or the lavender or the grass, or, you know, the well-being of
the
enhancement of those parts.
Yes.
So, listening to you speak and knowing sort of like how, I'm not surprised that you used the analogy of a garden, because you're a passionate gardener yourself, and so can you? What would be helpful, I think, is just a headline maybe. What are some of the foods and herbs which would help in this process?
Well, one of the herbs that is going to help immediately in the process of rebalancing the microbes is cinnamon, which has a lovely flavour, and a full teaspoonful taken in 2 parts each day will make a sizable contribution to the healing of the microbial balance. But also, of course, not only is there the fresh fruit and vegetables, but the fermented foods, such as yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut and sourdough bread all have this living vibration, this living involvement. And this, as I listen to what you're saying and even what I'm saying, it's so uplifting because it gives you a feeling of greater purpose and involvement in life. At the moment, things are handed out to us. We leave it to other people. We blame other people if things don't go right, if we haven't got enough money, if things are wrong in our relationships. And in fact, we are an integral part and a contributor to the well-being. And as we start to contribute and become involved and feel about how we go about these things and what feels right and what feels wrong, so we contribute so substantially to the well-being of the whole of society. And, you know, we have to keep on questioning. They talk about global warming, but how many people are actually asking, how does it come about? Yes, it may be industry, but industry is subsequent to our demands for the products that it supplies. Are we actually the cause of the problem ourselves? And how do we make that change and adjustment in order for there to be a healthy planet? But also, of course, there is the larger perspective that everything in life being of wave-like seasonal movement, we have to consider that we are only a small part on this planet of the whole cosmos. And so it goes on, you know. And so, yes, we're making a contribution one way or the other to our bodies and to the environment and to the planet, but also the greater is influencing us.
So I think what's interesting for me is listening to you talk about this concept of interrelatedness and interdependence, and specifically about microbes and about herbs. I'm beginning to see that the role and responsibility I have as an individual, because faced with global concerns like global warming and politics, it's easy for people to think, well, what difference can I make?
Yes.
You know, what impact can I have?
Yes.
But you're saying actually you can have a huge impact on your own health, but also upon the health of us as a society and our culture. And so if somebody wanted to come and talk to you, to have a consultation so that they could go into more depth about these things, is that possible? Do you have a practice?
Yes, I have a practice, and I practice throughout Devon and Somerset. Usually we spend at least an hour exploring what is going on in the life and in the body of the person. I use iridology because iridology enables me to view the iris of the eye of the person, which reflects not only the physical state of the body, but the tendencies, the stresses, and what have you. It tells me about how efficient or otherwise is the digestive system, the circulatory system, and so on. And so we put together this huge, beautiful picture of the person as they are, contribute the herbs. The person contributes changes to more wholesome food. And we enter into that picture this powerful aspect of the microbial activity as well, and everything is so substantially enhanced. And I've had occasions when I've had to visit hospitals to see relatives and support people, and you see the people, so many people who suffer these days with all that they go through. And this is an alternative, and a wonderful alternative. It does demand commitment. It does demand the recognition that it will take time. But it's like a snowball. It improves bit by bit as you start the ball rolling. So things improve progressively, and your outlook on life changes. You're becoming inspired, a more active part. As we were talking about the politics just now, how inspiring that we could make a contribution not to a party as against the other party, but to the benefit of our community, both locally and as a nation and as a planet.
So actually, as you describe it, what I'm imagining is that someone could come along and see you, and even after the first consultation, they could go away with a completely new or developed way of understanding themselves that was full of images and sensations, really quite a sensory sort of way of understanding them. It's quite a poetic way of understanding themselves.
Yeah.
So, in terms of thinking of this idea, this of a garden, and so it seems to me that after the first consultation, people are going to be going away with tools that they can begin to use,
that they didn't realise they had.
They didn't realise that they had. So we're talking about, but I guess you've referred to it, and I just want to ask you that in a little bit more detail. Is this just a short-term thing? I mean, does somebody come along and maybe see you, and then 6 weeks, like antibiotics? Most people are going to be familiar with antibiotics, aren't they?
Yes.
Which I thought was fascinating when you were talking earlier about biotics being life. Then it just seems anti-life. It's beginning to make sense to me in terms of healthy food, in terms of probiotics. So, is it just a short-term thing?
No, it is a long-term thing. It requires a new commitment. It requires patience. The interesting thing, I think, about it all is that once you, as you say, once you've had one session that may very well inspire you to begin to see that you can take some responsibility for yourself that you didn't realise that you could do, then the whole thing moves on. But this is a new way of life. Antibiotics will kill off that which is threatening your well-being. A couple of months later, you carry on living the way that you did, and all of the negative aspects will re-engage, and in a while you can be suffering from the same things again. What we're talking about is a transformation of consciousness, of feeling. Feeling is so central to all of this, because one can so quickly begin to feel uplifted simply by feeling, I've got a role to play. My life is my responsibility, with the help of others.
And I think that has so much to offer people today, because it's in today where there is so much information.
Yes.
There's almost information overload.
Yeah.
And so that returning to that sense of simplicity, that it makes absolute sense to me that if in my garden, which I now feel I've been given by you through this talk today, if I come into that garden and I chuck into it sort of rubbish, then it has an immediate, that I'm immediately aware of the consequences of doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
And
you feel that.
And I can feel it, and that's what it. That's you've reminded me when you said gut feeling earlier, and when you said it's central to, and the gut is central to our body.
Yeah.
Well, I found this so inspiring today. Thank you very much. I'm going to go away and I'm going to start taking care of my garden. I feel as though I've got a few tools to work on that garden with already.
Lovely.
So thank you. I
Oh,
hope we
thank
can
you.
talk again.
Absolutely.